What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Sunshine Cup with two buffed Pokemon in Shadow Hippowdon and Lopunny, and also a Pokemon that got double buffed last season in Beware. Now, the slight extra damage from Hippowdon on Earth Power rather than Scorching Sands isn't necessarily enough to one-shot Pokemon in neutral matchups, but what it often does is put them into perfect farm down range for one of my two back Pokemon. Now, Beware was a little bit hit and miss in this cup. I've opted for a triple fighting moveset because both my other Pokemon have pretty good coverage into flyers, and most flyers actually still take neutral damage in this meta because they are part normal, but there is the occasional Clodsire or something else that resists fighting, and you really just can't do much in those matchups. Now, my Lopunny, of course, it did gain access to both Thunder Punch and Shadow Ball this season. However, there are so many normal types in this meta, Shadow Ball honestly just doesn't make an awful lot of sense, so I've opted for Triple Axle to boost up the attack stat, and Lopunny, a fairly bulky Pokemon, so it could really do with a bit of an attack boost, so that's why I'm opting for it. Now, before we get into the question of the day, I want to give a quick shout out to Bad Toad TTV for the gifted memberships in my recent live stream. As always, it is very much appreciated, and with that being said, let's now get into the question of the day. What have you thought about the limited metas we've played in so far this season? Obviously, both of them are only allowing for 4 different types, but the NAIC had loads of different bans, whereas the Sunshine Cup only banned Charizard for some reason. Let me know what you thought about those cups this season, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Let's go into the first battle, leading Shadow Hippowdon into Shadow Blaziken. Now, for the very first battle I did with this team, I was trying Ice Fang. Shout out to Jamie Finn, who recently showcased Shadow Hippowdon with Ice Fang. However, I led into a Blaziken, and I had a really rough time there because, of course, it resists the Ice-type damage, and my backline is weak to the fighting typing, so instantly switched it over for Sand Attack, specifically for this team, and it did work out a little better for me. Now, here, we're going to see Beware in action up against the Quagsire. Now, we're going to go for a Drain Punch here. Of course, Superpower is overkill. Drain Punch should get the knockout from this range, and we are boosting our defense each time. However, we are getting very low to the point where an Aqua Tail probably is still going to get the knockout anyways, but we're going to fire off yet another Drain Punch here. Drain Punch, gonna grab the final shield from the Quagsire. Can we hang on? We are now triple boosted in our defense, but no, Mud Bomb gets the knockout. However, it does set up a nice farm down for the Hippowdon as the opponent comes in with their final Pokemon, a Dunsparce. Earth Power doesn't deal too much damage, but it will very comfortably two-shot them, and at this point, of course, we are resisting the fast loop pressure from the rollouts. Drill Run going to do slightly less damage this season. We're now going to look to overfarm, throwing as late as possible. Earth Power, number 2, gets the knockout. They come back in with the Blaziken, but Shadow Hippowdon, super spammy there, reaching a third Earth Power, getting the knockout, and we're able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there. Into the next battle, going to see a Piloswine in the lead. So, of course, not a great matchup for me. I'm going to be safe swapping into my Lopunny, and I'm met with a Shadow Blaziken. I'm going straight for the Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch is going to be shielded there by the Blaziken, and at this point, I'm probably just going to let the move go through. I believe they are back-to-back charge moves already, and Aura Sphere is going to get the knockout. Yes, the opponent does already have the second charge move loaded, so we're going to shield the Aura Sphere, and now we're going to look to slightly overfarm. We can overfarm by just a single Sand Attack here. Fire off the Weather Ball. Weather Ball is going to hit for neutral damage, and it gets the knockout. Now we swap into Beware. This is not the best matchup for me. I am going to go for a Drain Punch bait here. However, the opponent actually ends up no shielding, but because we boost our defense, I can actually shield in this matchup and then commit to a full low kick farm down. But not only that, remember, I've only shown Drain Punch. The opponent might actually end up no shielding here. The opponent does no shield, and Superpower nearly gets the one shot. What a more low kick. Ends up getting the farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there. Into the next battle, we're going to see another Shadow Blaziken in the lead. This time around, they are on counter as the fast move, which means, of course, they are dealing a lot more fast move pressure, and especially into my backline, that is not going to be ideal to see. So here, of course, we're going to look to shield as the opponent is going to fire off the Blaze Kick. They then swap into a Ferret, so I'm going to instantly going to come in with my Beware. Of course, don't need to shield the first move, even if they go for Break, debuff my defense here. I can, of course, if I want to, boost up my defense. However, I'm not entirely sure if Drain Punch KOs, so instead, we go for the Superpower, and even now double debuffed in my defense, I should just narrowly live one more counter from the Shadow Blaziken, and I can fire off yet another charge move. Drain Punch is going to get the knockout. Their final Pokemon is going to be a Licky, and we should be in a pretty good position here. We're going to go straight for the Earth Power. Earth Power, going to grab the final shield. The opponent is going to overfarm just slightly in this matchup. I don't really need to shield here. Body slam, going to get the knockout. We can now come in with the Lopunny, and this should be a pretty comfortable matchup for me. I'm going to no shield the first charge we've hit as the opponent is going to fire off the body slam. You can see we're going to tank that very comfortably. Now, I believe I did get a debuff here with the Earth Power, which means I don't really need to boost up my attack stats. However, I'm going to go for it anyways. Here, I think I do shield at the last second, just in case for whatever reason they're running like a Hyper Beam or something, or Solar Beam. But either way, we reach the Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch gets the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into next battle, we're going to see Swampert in the lead. So, of course, not the best matchup for me, but I'm actually going to choose to stay in initially, then look to swap out and catch the move onto my Lopunny. I also swap out one turn early there, which means we get the low kick through, which means I can now outpace the Fearow to a charge move. But I'm actually going to go for a Triple Axle here, as Triple Axle is going to boost up my attack stat. However, unfortunately, it's not quite enough to allow me to get the full farm down before they reach another charge move. But we can now come in with the Hippowdon. I'm happy to let the first move go through here, as of course Hydro Cannon is going to do more damage, and now I'm actually going to come in with the Beware, get the full farm down. However, unfortunately for me, it is going to be a double normal and flying backline, but again, we can go for Drain Punch. However, this time around, this is a non-Shadow 2 cannon, so they do end up tanking that a lot more comfortably. I'm gonna kind of have to shield here, but we should be grabbing a shield back from the opponent. Drain Punch coming through is going to be shielded. We can swap back into Hippowdon. However, unfortunately for me, we did have to stay in for quite a while with the Beware there. The opponent swaps back into the Swampert, and we're not in the best position here. However, I'm going to shield anyways. Let's see what we can do. If my switch clock comes up in time, then potentially I do still have the catch opportunity. We throw at the last second. Earth Power gets the knockout, but unfortunately my switch clock nowhere near up in time, which means they win CMP. Drill Peck gets the knockout. They get the Peck farm down, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's up on there. Into next battle, going to see Ferret in the lead. So we can actually stay in this matchup here, even if they do have Trailblaze. We will outpace to the Earth Power by a single turn. So we're just going to stay in, fire off the Earth Power, and then I'm going to swap into my Lopunny. Now, even if they have Break there, I really don't mind too much. Lopunny, as I mentioned, is relatively bulky. And again, we're going for the Triple Axle there. You can see we're still unfortunately not going to be putting them into range where I can fully farm them down. However, I'm going to shield the Drill Peck. I'm now going to go for a second Triple Axle. Are they going to look to shield here, or will they let it go down? They are going to shield. At this point, we're already double boosted, but I think I will just no shield this. We can actually tank that. They come in with a Clodsire, but we're already double boosted. This Triple Axle gonna do just under half their HP. We can now come back in with the Shadow Hippowdon. And of course, we've got to be wary, as of course, Earthquake did get buffed this season, and they end up full sending. Now here, unfortunately, I do not throw on the best timing, giving a full Poison Sting in for free. However, because we bait, I just barely get to the Earth Power anyways. Earth Power gets the KO there. They come back in with the Ferret. They do actually reach the charge move. What are they going to throw? Swift doesn't get the knockout. I'm going to snipe with the Beware, and the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's up on there. Into next battle, we're going to see Hippowdon into a Dunsparce. So this is a decent matchup for me. However, I do have two Pokemon that either are fighting types or at least have fighting type fast speed pressure. So what we're going to do, whilst we're resisting the rollout damage, stay in initially, fire off the Earth Power, and then eventually I will look to swap into my Lopunny. So Earth Power going to connect. It does big damage. We swap into Lopunny, and the opponent swaps out pretty much at the same time. I'm not sure if that was a counter swap or if they intended in swapping out at the same time anyways. But either way, we go for Triple Axle, and we actually grab a shield there. That is quite surprising. They're going to boost up their attack stat with a Trailblaze, and this time around I am just going to settle for a Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch going to be double shielded, which is honestly really strange there from the Oranguru, and now they will throw on CMP. Lopunny going to go down to the Brutal Swing. Hippowdon does have some energy, however they are going to reach yet another Brutal Swing, so of course I'm going to look to shield here, and then I will look to overfarm, but the opponent comes back in with the Dunsparce, so I think I'm going to double shield, bank the energy, and then just come in with the Beware. Of course, if they go straight for a Brutal Swing, that is resisted damage, so I really don't mind if they throw immediately. Of course, Brutal Swing honestly does about the same damage as a single Confusion, so really not the end of the world. Now, we can go for Drain Punch. Oh, sorry, no, we actually go for Superpower. Not entirely sure if Drain Punch would get the knockout from that range, but now we're going to go for a second Superpower. Superpower still does big damage, and we can go for that combination play, coming back in with Hippowdon, going for the Earth Power, and of course, Earth Power gets the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top there into next battle, going to see Dubwool in the lead. So this is going to be a little bit of an awkward matchup for my backline, as yes, I do have two Pokemon that can apply Fighting type fast speed pressure into them. We're also going to take Fighting type fast speed pressure, which is super effective, into us. But here we're just going to stay in initially, go for the Earth Power, of course. We're now going to swap out into Lopunny, and the opponent obviously not going to go for a Wild Charge into the Hippowdon, but I'm actually going to shield here, and they bait with a Body Slam. Honestly, I probably should not be shielding my Lopunny anyways, as it is very bulky. Even a Wild Charge really not going to deal too much damage, especially non-stab from a Dubwool. But either way, they're going to come in with a Stunfisk. We've already boosted up our attack stat by one stage. We go for a second Triple Axle. Triple Axle number 2 gets them fairly low, and we try to snipe them with the Hippowdon, or maybe catch a Discharge or something. Unfortunately, we don't get either, and the opponent actually snipes us with a Kanto Ninetales. I'm now going to come in with the Beware, and the opponent is going to throw straight away. I'm going to no-shield the first move, as the opponent is just going to settle for a Weather Ball, which we're able to tank relatively comfortably. And here I farm up a decent amount of energy. I go for the Drain Punch, but the opponent no-shields. So yeah, unfortunately, pretty much every single time I threw a charge move, at least the first one, it would be no-shielded. So potentially, we have more opportunities to go for the superpower straight away. And this time around, they actually no-shield again. However, I believe Dubwool just has way too much energy here. Body Slam, does it get the KO? Yes, it does. And they're going to outpace me to the next charge move anyways, just a single fast move away. Body Slam takes out the Beware as well. And unfortunately, I lose that game. But GG's top there into next battle, going to see Furret in the lead once again, and once again we can outpace them by a single turn. If they throw before we get to the Earth Power, we know it's not a Trailblaze, but here we are going to throw straight away. So Earth Power going to connect, and again we're going to swap into the Lopunny, this time around met with a Shadow Blaziken. Last time we grabbed a shield with a Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch going to be shielded once again. This time around they were slightly slower to swap out, and they actually overfarm. They continue to overfarm, which means Thunder Punch is going to get them very low. Now it's very clear they've got back-to-back charge moves, if not even more than that. But either way, they're going to go for the Aura Sphere. We come in, unfortunately can't quite stand attack farm them down before they get off another charge move. They full send the Blast Burn this time around before swapping into a Shadow 2 Cannon. However, Hippowdon very spammy, able to reach the Weather Balls slightly faster than the opponent will be reaching these Drill Pecks. So all I've got to do is survive the Peck damage, get to another Weather Ball, which we're able to do. Weather Ball is super effective. It's Shadow on Shadow. It gets the knockout. We swap back into Beware. And Beware, not the bulkiest Pokemon ever. They go for a Brick Break. If they reach another Brick Break, we are not going to live this. Is it a Brick Break already? No, it's the Swift, but it actually KOs anyways. But Shadow Hippowdon, able to sand attack, farm down both the Furret and the Shadow Blaziken to take that game. So, GG's top there into next battle, going to see yet another Furret in the lead. So once again, we're just going to choose to stay in here. If the opponent stays in and they don't throw immediately, then we can outpace them to the Earth Power. Earth Power going to connect, and again we swap into our Lopunny. This time around, they do actually stay in and fire for charge move, but it's just going to be a Swift. So potentially, that means they don't have access to Brick Break, and instead they're running Trailblaze. So of course, that means Shadow Hippowdon is going to have to look out for that. But here, we're going to look to overfarm. Of course, the opponent doesn't know we don't have Shadow Ball, so we actually end up grabbing a shield there, and we can fire off another Thunder Punch. Thunder Punch number 2 going to connect. It really doesn't deal too much damage here. And of course, I don't know if they're running Energy Ball or not. I think the recommended moveset for this meta is with Overheat as the secondary charge move. However, of course, do you necessarily want to get rid of a Legacy Community Day move just specifically for the Sunshine Cup? It's quite unlikely. Either way, unfortunately, we lose CMP there, which I did not expect, but we barely hang on, living the Weather Ball there, getting off our own Weather Ball, but their final Pokemon is going to be Fearow. We try to make the catch. It does not work out for us. My only win condition here is probably just full sending Superpower, hoping they no shield, but even then, it probably will not get the KO or even put them into farm down range. Drill Peck certainly knocks out the Beware, and unfortunately, I lose that game. But GG's top there into the next battle. I'm going to see Makago in the lead, so this is a great lead matchup for me. The opponent's going to be safe swapping into Oranguru. Now, I don't have the best charge move pressure from my backline into this Pokemon, so I'm going to chip with the Earth Power, which does big damage, and it should put them into range where a Thunder Punch or a Triple Axle will get the knockout. I'm now going to look to overfarm and then go for a Triple Axle, as I can boost up my attack stat. The opponent lets that go through. They're now going to look to overfarm with the Macago, which is fine with me. We can now go for a boosted Thunder Punch, and Thunder Punch actually going to grab a shield. Again, they don't know that I'm not running Shadow Ball, so they end up respecting the damage. They fire off the Rock Tomb there. We're coming in with Shadow Hippowdon, and the opponent going to allow me to reach a Weather Ball. Now, we throw on CMP, which is very risky up against an Incinerate user, but they did just throw straight away. However, they're going to have a Jump Luff in the back. Now, of course, if we're running Ice Fang, this is a super comfortable matchup for me. However, you can see 2 Weather Balls, even though they're super effective, will not get the KO. They're also not going to put them into range where we can triple resisted Sand Attack farm them down either. However, I do get very fortunate that the opponent baits up against the Beware. Superpower is going to be resisted damage. However, it certainly guarantees that a Rock Weather Ball will KO. Of course, they've still got 1 shield, but we've got both shields here. They have very minimal fast move pressure into us with Fairy Wind, as it is non-stab, and it's just a low damage fast move anyways. So here, of course, I'm going to start using my shields. I believe the opponent does already have back-to-back charge moves, and they will just barely outpace me, but even if they somehow reach another move here, it doesn't matter, as Hippowdon would win CMP. The opponent recognizes that, and so they just concede the match. So, GG's up on there. Into next battle, we're going to see a Shadow Quagsire in the lead. Now, most Quagsire in this meta are going to be running Water Gun as the fast move, so I'm actually going to swap out of that matchup into my Lopunny. Now, Lopunny doesn't have the best matchup here ever because because the Triple Axle just not really going to deal too much damage here, and you see we will need 2 of them to get the knockout. However, they end up swapping into a Ferret. I'm now already boosted. These low kicks dealing decent damage, and Thunder Punch actually going to grab a shield. I'm probably going to have to come back in with my Hippowdon. Even if they have Trailblaze here, I'm just going to no-shield anyways, because Hippowdon doesn't have an awful lot of play into a Water Gun Quagsire, but now we can come in with the Beware, and I'm actually going to use a shield. The opponent goes for Brick Break there, which of course, going to drop my defense. However, I can boost it again with the Drain Punch. So go straight for Drain Punch here. Drain Punch, going to be shielded by the opponent, which is quite surprising. So I'm also just going to match shields here. They go for the Brick Break, they swap back into Quagsire, but now we can go straight for a Superpower. Superpower, gonna get the knockout, and let's see what is their final Pokemon. They can't really come back in with the Ferret just yet, so let's see. It's gonna be a Credilli, so I'm gonna bank the energy, come in with Hippowdon. I tried to force him to throw before we get to the charge move. However, the opponent does not throw straight away, but they can't really overfarm by too much either, because I will reach a Rock Weather Ball, and from this range, Rock Weather Ball will get the knockout. So we come back in with the Beware. We do wait 1 turn just to make sure we see the Acid fast move going through, which means they can't catch onto Ferret, and as a result, the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Shadow Quagsire in the lead. This time around, we are going to swap out straight away, just presuming they would be on Water Gun as the fast move. They can just barely outpace me to the charge move, as we do take 1 turn to swap out there. And of course, Triple Axle will be reached after 6 low kicks. But here, we're going to go for the Triple Axle, grabbing a shield, as we do look to overfarm there, and we can reach a second Triple Axle. However, they've already shielded once. They're actually going to double shield their Shadow Quagsire, which isn't really ideal for me, but we're going to come in with the Beware. So of course, I'm going to no-shield the first charge move here, just because I'm aiming to go straight for a Superpower. If they end up catching this, then fair play, but they don't. They stay in. So Superpower gets the knockout there, but they actually come in with a Bomber Snow, and I swap out immediately to clear my debuff. However, clearly I should have stayed in, waited to see what came in, because a Bomber Snow, unfortunately, whilst we do have super effective coverage with Rock Weather Ball, this is not going to be enough damage to even put them into Sand Attack farm down range, so it puts me in a really awkward situation. Here, however, we are going to go for an Earth Power as they swapped out, trying to catch the charge move there. I'm going to swap out, but I didn't quite bank a move myself. Also, it did take me quite a while to swap out there, as my switch clock was just barely coming up, which means, unfortunately, they're going to outpace me to the move. Swift gets the knockout. I'm not going to be able to fast move farm them down there, so I can't leave with a Rock Weather Ball, and so unfortunately, I lose that game. But GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Wigglytuff in the lead, which not very common in this meta. I am very much appreciating the Charm nerf this season. Let me know if you are also enjoying the nerf to Charm users, and especially to Wigglytuff. This is literally my least favorite Pokemon of all time. Here, I'm going to shield the Icy Wind, which means they should now be able to live an Earth Power relatively comfortably, but I believe they are going to go straight for a Swift, and so I'm actually going to swap out and catch the move onto my Lopunny. What I didn't want to do is swap out slightly sooner and then risk potentially actually them debuffing my attack stat. However, with triple axle, we can just boost it up straight away. Here, we're going to go for the triple axle. The opponent is going to no-shield that first charge move, and I'm also going to look to no-shield. Even if they go for Brick Break, I should be able to reach another charge move before they can fully farm me down. And by the way, both Thunder Punch and triple axle, I believe, do the same damage. It doesn't quite get the knockout, but we actually get a simultaneous KO. Now I'm going to come in straight away with the Beware, and this should be a pretty dominant matchup for me. I'm actually going to shield the first charge move because I will just go straight for a Drain Punch, and I don't really care if the opponent ends up shielding or not. Now you can see I do overfarm here just in case the opponent does come back in with the Wigglytuff. However, by the time they swap out, it's not really going to matter too much, as I will be boosted in my defense. So I'm actually going to commit to a full low kick farm down. I come out with back-to-back charge moves. Drain Punch should guarantee the knockout from this range, but just because we can, I'm going to full send the Superpower. Superpower, massive overkill, but it takes out the Licky Licky, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Fearow in the lead. So this is going to be a decent matchup for me just because Rock Weather Ball is going to hit for super effective. However, it is not enough damage to one-shot them, and I'm never going to be able to stand attack farm them down. So I swap out straight away after landing the Rock Weather Ball, and I swap into my Lopunny. They go for a Drill Peck before swapping into a Shadow Kanto Ninetales, and here I might as well look to overfarm. Weather Ball wouldn't quite get the KO from this range, and so I'm able to grab a shield there with the Thunder Punch. Can we hang on now? Weather Ball doesn't quite get the knockout, so we do reach a second Thunder Punch, and this is going to be quite nice for me because it should now put them into range where a Rock Weather Ball will KO. However, what I might end up doing instead is actually just double shielding in this matchup. We already know we lose CMP, so I'm going to double shield, and then I'm just going to commit to a full sand attack farm down. The opponent recognizing that's what we're going for, and so they swap out straight away into Fearow. I couldn't really remember how much energy they had, so I don't really overfarm by much there. Potentially could have farmed up a lot more there, but their final Pokemon gonna be a Ferret. We've already seen with Brick Break, this matchup isn't actually that great for Beware. However, they are on Swift, so potentially after boosting up my defense here with a Drain Punch, I should be able to live the next charge move. But the opponent not going to allow for that because they swap, they make the catch there onto the Ninetales. Really nice play. And of course, I've just dropped my defense there, which isn't really ideal. The opponent going to come back in. They fire off a Trailblaze, but that is a big mistake because now Hippowdon able to outpace them to the charge move. Rock Weather Ball gets the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. However, I believe potentially if they went straight for Swift there, maybe they could have outpaced me to the next move. But anyways, into the next battle, going to see a shiny Shadow Obscune. That is a really nice shiny Shadow. We're going to swap out into Lopunny, where of course we are taking super effective damage from the counters, but our low kicks are double super effective. So even though it's not the hardest hitting move, it is dealing some decent damage. Force the opponent to swap out there, coming in with the Shadow Pidgeot. And here we're in a bit of a tricky situation. Thunder Punch is going to grab a shield. I'm going to come in with Hippowdon, and I'm just going to assume they're not full sending Brave Bird. Even if they do full send, it will allow me to farm down with my Beware. Instead, they end up getting a boost with the Air Cutter, which not great for me, but they're going to look to double shield. And unfortunately, I do allow a full farm down. That is not a great play on my end, but the opponent going to bank the energy. Doesn't matter anyways. Excuse me if you heard me burp there. They've got a Shadow Gligar. Beware can do literally nothing there. And so we just allow a full Wing Attack farm down, and we lose that game. But GG's up on there into the final battle of this video, leading into a Credilli. And again, this is a matchup where I can just barely outpace them to the first charge move. Earth Power gonna connect, and I swap into my Lopunny. Again, the opponent is gonna bank a ton of energy from that lead Pokemon, and then swap into a Shadow Kanto Ninetales. Here, we are also farming up a ton of energy, farming up to back-to-back Thunder Punches here. First one, gonna be no-shooter by the opponent, but we've already seen we can live a Weather Ball from this range, so I'm just gonna no-shield this, go for Thunder Punch number 2. This also barely won't get the knockout, so I did think about trying to snipe with my Hippowdon. However, there's no point there. I don't want to be switch locked up against Credilli with so much energy. They're now going to come in with a Ferret, and here I'm going to go straight for Drain Punch. So Drain Punch gonna be no-shielded by the opponent. That is a brave call there, but I might as well shield here. I've already boosted up my defense just in case they did have Brick Break there. I didn't want to be hit by a super effective charge move, whereas now the opponent goes for a Rock Tomb bait. The opponent realizes they needed to grab my final shield there, and so they just concede the match. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.